Last Christmas, I made this cute little 4.5 by 6.5 inch album with my chipboard and pretty Christmas paper. I also added these little ribbons here, as you can see, with this tie closure. And I shared it just in short videos. I didn't show all of the steps. And I thought we would take the opportunity this season to make something very similar, if not the same, but we've got some new pretty Christmas papers that we're going to use, but we're going to use this basic similar design. This is one of my favorite pieces that I like to use. It's just attaching here at the top and then giving enough room to take a little journal card or whatever it is and slide it up underneath. I love to do that. We have this third panel that we add to the little album, and this just makes a cute little piece that you can use to add pictures to or any kind of journaling. I've got my chipboard out and my measurements. Let's get ready and let's start making this journal. Anytime I'm cutting with my X-Acto knife and my chipboard, I like to use a metal ruler, and I have lots of different rulers. I don't use my plastic though when I'm doing this because it never fails. I end up cutting into the plastic on the ruler as I'm doing that. I also like to have the self-healing cutting mat underneath, and we're going to cut first of all 2 pieces that are 4.5 by 6 inches. I have this piece of chipboard that I have gotten probably from the back of a paper pad or something like that, and I'm just going to line this up on this grid, and I'm going to make use of the grid on the mat and then my ruler. Like I said, we're cutting 4.5 wide by 6.5 tall. And so first let's go to the 4.5 mark, or do we want to go ahead? Let's cut off, let's see the dimension here. This is approximately 8.5 inches. So I just like to think where I can cut to have the most scraps that I might use again later. I'm going to line this up on the corner, and I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it at 6.5 down here. That will give us the length that we need, because I think we only cut it off just a little bit, maybe an inch at most on that. So once I've got everything lined up here, I can line up with my ruler to the 6.5 point, and here's where my X-Acto knife is going to come in. I'm going to just cut right along that metal ruler, and I'm going to try my best not to move the ruler until I know for sure that there is a clean break in this chipboard. It's almost there. Oops, I've got a little bit on the blade, and my blade is probably not the sharpest, but it gets the job done. And so there I've got my 6.5 length. And so now we want to cut to 2 pieces of 4.5. We'll line this up again, and let's get to the 4.5 mark on both ends so that we have a straight line. And we're going to just repeat and do the exact same thing. And that cut that out. So here's my 4.5 by 6.5, one piece. And let's see how much we're going to cut here. Just almost an inch off. But I will be keeping that other piece that we have left over. It might make a good spine for another project. So here are these pieces, front and back cover. And I'm going to do a 1-inch spine. And let's see. We can actually, this is the piece we cut off. This was another piece I had, but I think I'm going to go with what I cut off. Look at this spine. So if I ever need a 3/4 inch spine, I've got it. Let's look at what we cut off, because then we'll have the same type of chipboard. This one is 2 inches left over. I want to cut it off at the 6.5 first. So I've got that lined up, and let me cut it off at 6.5. So I have a little bit left over I'm not for sure what I'll actually use that piece for, but you never know. So we'll keep this over to the side, and then I'm gonna split this in half, and this will be great for me to use. It's almost not quite two, so the second use of it, I'll just have to remember that. It probably doesn't have to be exactly an inch. Line this up. Almost got it. There we go. And there's my spine. So we have our spine and our front and back covered chipboard. We're ready to do some covering. Start off, and I'm going to show you the paper pad that I'm going to use. We're going to try something a little different. Normally I go with a 12 by 12 pad of paper, but this was so cute. It's an 8.5 by 11 that I got from Hobby Lobby this season. It's called Walking in Winter Wonderland. The paper is a thicker paper, just like 12 by 12 paper, and it is so lovely. I really wanted to use it, so we're going to give it a try. There are 4 pieces of each design, and so I think we will have a good use of our paper here. So I'll be choosing the papers to cover from this, but we're also going to use a black piece of cardstock. Here I've got a 12 by 12 sheet that we are going to look at using to cover our initial covering, and then we'll put the paper on top. This being a 12 by 12 piece of black cardstock, and with our paper right here, it's going to cover, if it was end to end, 10 inches across, because we have 4.5, 1 inch, and 4.5. So that's going to be 10 inches. That should normally give us a 1 inch border, and that's what I like to have. Now, we don't have to worry about the top and the bottom. We can fix that. But I also don't like to have my pieces stacked right beside each other. We have to give ourselves a little bit of separation so that we can do the bending and everything. So we're not going to have quite a 1 inch border, and it doesn't really have to be exact. I can line it up here on my board and kind of play around with it. Here's my 6 inch line, and I can have a 1 inch over here. And if I line it up about like that, I'm just really kind of eyeballing where I will place my pieces. I give about, if I were to give a measurement, it's about 1/8 of an inch that I leave between the spine and the covers. This is where I'm going to go with, but the next step, what I need to do is attach the black to it. So I'm going to put some 2-sided tape on here and come back and show you what that looks like before I apply to the black paper. For this project, I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac and put it on each of these pieces, and we'll set this down and probably put a book on it to dry. It doesn't matter to me which side is which, even though I've got these turned down this way. I'm going to kind of leave these in their spots. I'm going to go ahead and put the glue down on the chipboard, and then I will flip the piece over. Kind of just helps me to keep everything where we've set everything, right about here, and then we'll line everything up according to that. Like I had said, I'm going to place a book on top of these and allow it to dry for a little bit. My glue is not wanting to come out very nicely. It's kind of a little sticky. Haven't used it in a while. And I don't worry that much about it drying and if it shows through, because we're going to cover it up with decorative paper. But it usually does a good job here. Just kind of line that up with that approximately 1/8 of an inch difference. We have the shorter border here compared to the top, but again, it's not going to matter because of the paper that we're going to cover it all with. But I do like to have some border, because as you're going to see, we're going to roll that over so that our edges are nice and covered. Make sure you get the glue to close to the edge. It's going to spread a little bit, and like that, I just got it over. That's okay. Flip this over, line everything up about 1/8 of an inch, and we'll press that down. Let me grab my really thick book. Here is my big, thick college book that I like to use as a glue book now, I guess you could call it, to hold everything down in place. So I'm going to leave this here for a little bit, and I'll come right back. So I've left my book on here for about 30 minutes. I had to run an errand. Let's see what it looks like. And looks pretty dry, and this is the way it looks from the front. So I think that looks really good. We need to trim off this bottom piece here. So again, I'm going to use my mat. And this time I'm going to use, this is a 12-inch piece of paper. So you can see, I'm going to go, it looks like it is, let's see, well, we're counting down from 12. So we're at 6.5 here, or actually it should be 1, 2, 3, 7. We're at 7.5 here. Let's go about 1 inch down. Let me pull this down just a little bit, and I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to take off this piece of paper. We could have cut it with the scissors, but that should be pretty straight there, and that looks good. So this is what we're looking like right now, and we can use this as a scrap sheet of paper. Now our goal is we want to fold these borders around our book cover, our album cover. But the first thing I like to do is I like to take care of each of our corners, because if we fold right now, we're going to have edges bunched up, right? So we're going to trim those off. And I know that you can buy tools for your books and stuff to do this, but I just use my scissors, and my plan is I'm going to cut at a slight angle up to this corner, but not all the way to the corner. I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch from the corner, and then pivot and make an angle out. And let me show you what I mean by that. This is how we'll use these to cover our angles, or to cover the edges. We're going to cut up to that corner, but not quite there. And then I'm going to angle and come out. And so we have something that looks like this. And so I'm going to repeat that on all 4 sides. We're going to cut up to about 1/8 of an inch, pivot, and come out. If you want to draw this, you can, but I just kind of used my scissors now. I guess I've done it a few times. And so I'll get to that corner, and then we'll pivot up, and one more corner. Get to that corner, pivot up. And so now we have all 4 corners. I'm going to take my bone folder now, and as I kind of work this fold, we want to fold this up. We kind of maybe want to use our table, our desk. My paper is not very thick. I just want to fold and be careful right along these edges that you don't get caught up and maybe rip your paper if you can help it. So now let's do a cross side the same way. We want to pull slightly because we want it to go all the way over our pages, and fold down with our bone folder. Really burnish that. Now we'll do the edges. Fold that down, and one more edge. We're going to end up covering all this with our pretty papers, but your borders will be this black. So now we have something like this. Now I want to go in, and we're going to use our glue again. I'm going to come back with my Fabri-Tac, and I'm just going to start on the long edges here and apply some glue. Get right around our edges. And we're gonna fold this up. Fold as we're also kind of pulling. We want it to be tight, and just like we were burnishing those edges earlier, and now we have the glue, and we're going to end up really getting this spine because we're going to have the fold. Now let's do the upper part, or you know, I could have this upside down. This could be the bottom, really. I'm using my glue. Got some on my mat. Fold this down the same way we did and really burnish that. I'm going to put my book on top of this again. But just get that down, and now let's do each of the edges. We have our glue. You can use adhesive here, any kind of adhesive that works for you. I like this Beacon, the Fabri-Tac. Or if you want to use tape. Now we're going to take care of the edges here in just a moment as well, or at least check them. But when we did the little edge cut, hopefully that takes care of also covering. We don't make too strong of an angle, but just enough. Everything is covered nicely. You can see here. And just so that we make sure everything dries, I'm going to use my book again for probably about 30 minutes and go run another errand. So now we have given our book time to dry the cardstock that is on our 2 pieces of chipboard. And again, I'm just making sure that I can bend everything nice and no pulls, no tears. Now let's take a look at the corners, and if you'll remember how we trimmed those, but some of these have a little bit of a sharp corner. I'm just going to take my bone folder and just carefully kind of soften those edges just a little bit if they have the sharp corners. Kind of keeps them in place, but takes that sharp point off. And I'm just doing it towards this inside. And we'll do it right here as well. Soften those up a little bit, and they look fine from that outside cover. Okay, so now we have that complete. If you'll remember, our piece has a flap that's going to extend. I'm going to use this as my front. We have our spine in the back. So I have taken another piece of black cardstock. This measures 5 by 6 1/4, and then I have scored it at 1 inch. And so we're going to attach that here to the edge. I'm going to go ahead and let's fold this in. And when we have this piece, if you can imagine, when it is going to be glued here, it does not go all the way to the edge. And I want to go ahead and do this piece first before I lay any of my decorative paper, because we want to cover up this flap. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to attach, I'm going to start, I think, with some tape, because this is cardstock. So I'm going to put some tape here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So I have placed these 2 strips, a 1/2 inch of double-sided tape and then a 1/4 inch of double-sided tape onto this little piece that's going to act to hold down our flap. And then I'm also going to go in, and I think I'm going to put a little bit of the Fabri-Tac on this as well. And just to have the tape to give that immediate hold, and then the glue to get a little bit of a firmer hold in place for us. And we're going to be folding this in, so make sure that you place it in the correct direction. And I don't want to get all the way to the edge, but pretty close. I like to hold it that way so I can see from this direction. We're going to fold this in, and it's almost the same as our 1 inch fold in in terms of size. And just burnish that, and that will be drying. So that is our fold. So now we have 3 panels that we will have for our book. Now it's going to be time to get some decorative paper out. You can take a look at my original book. When I have the flap here, I am using a single piece of, I think I used 12 by 12 paper, so it was a little easier to do this one single strip across and then a different paper for the flap. We're going to need a sheet that is 9 7/8 wide by 6 3/8 tall. And so that's what I'm looking for this one piece, 9 7/8 by 6 3/8. We're also going to want to cover the front panel, or both sides of the panels are going to be covered. So I'm going to use 3 different designs to do my covering. And so take a look at your papers and see what you want to use, and we'll come back and get those measured out. Now, because I wanted to use this 8.5 by 11-inch paper pad, I'm going to have to look at directions. I'm going to need this 9 7/8 inch length. So I'm going to need to look at direction. I've got 2 potential pages, and I think I'm going to go with the green. I do like this, but there's a lot of white in it. But I think this page will look good in this direction, so I'm going to cut that for that. And then I need my 2 pages for the flap. And I don't have to worry as much. Well, I don't have to worry about direction on this. I'm not going to go as much with the green, so I'm going to just flip through this and figure out what I want to use on the flap, and I'll be back to share that with you. When I'm looking at my covered album so far, I think I'm going to have to make an adjustment on what I had originally done with some measurements, and I think we're going to need to go. Let me show you where I'm measuring to. I don't know if this is something that when I cut this out, I made it a little different, but I think I'm going to need to go to 10 inches by the 6 1/4, which is what we made for this. I'm going to cut this page to 10 by 6 1/4. Because I'm going to put a pocket down here, I have cut this page to 3 15/16. So it's going to fit right here with just a tiny border by 5. And that's because I'm going to put a 2-inch pocket there, so it doesn't have to go all the way down. I'm going to cut the next piece to cover this entire panel. So I actually cut this at about 6 1/8 by 3 15/16. Almost like 3 7/8 across. I thought this picture was good because we really don't put anything on here. You can attach something if you want, but I like to leave this flap kind of open with just the paper. So now I need to attach these, and I'm going to do that with some of my 2-sided tape. So first of all, for this paper, I have put some of the 2-sided tape on the back here. I'm using the 1/2 inch tear tape for this project. And I'm also going to use some of my glue as well, just to get a nice firm hold. And now let's get some of the Fabri-Tac. Okay. And I don't think my paper is directional. Top to bottom. And as we place this down, we do need to look at the center pieces. So I am going to take my bone folder. I have my bone folder, and let's see. I know I have right about here. I'm going to take this and just kind of fold it as I very lightly run my bone folder down to make this crease that's going to help it to fold. And I want to just press that down, and then also from this other side as we're going to fold. So we make our little bit of a score line for that center, and then just burnish that, and that's going to be drying while now we'll work on the flap. I first have the piece that is a little bit shorter because of the pocket that we're going to add, and I'm just going to take my tape off of this, the covers off of the tape. Add just a little bit of glue. And we're just going to line this up from the top. And that will get in place. We're going to add that pocket down here. And the reason I do this shorter is I'm just basically saving paper. Fold our flap over. And I've got my other piece ready to go. So we'll just take this cover off and we're going to do the exact same thing. Let's add a little bit more glue. And this paper is directional. So now I have the flap and I do go edge to edge, top to bottom, and just place that on. And see how nicely this looks when it's folded together and we have the coordinating papers. That's why I oftentimes use paper from the same paper pads, so I know that they go well together. You may do well coordinating your papers from different things, and that is great. I need a little help to get those papers that match up. And then our flap will open up. Next, we're going to add the hinge that goes in the spine and start off with a piece of, I'm going with the black cardstock that is 2 by 6 inches, and we're going to score it at a half, 1, and 1.5. So we're going to start off first. You can just make that half, that fold on the 1 inch line. We're just going to fold that in half. And then for the other 2 pieces, we're going to do really an accordion fold. So we're going to have something that looks, instead of folding down, now we're going to fold up on either side. But if you remember when you were younger and you made an accordion or a fan fold, backwards, forwards, that's what we're going to do. We're shooting for that, and that is going to make our hinge. We're going to adhere the middle 2 pieces together. So I'm going to take a piece of my 2-sided tape and just run that along that edge. And you only have to do it on the one side because we're going to fold it over on itself. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue along this to just make it give it a strong hold. Now let's fold these in half to make this hinge. So the only pieces that had glue or tape on it were the middle pieces. And you might have a little tape seep out. That's why I don't want to fold it all the way in half, because this piece now that is flat is going to be adhered to our spine. Now I could have gone ahead, I probably should have, and put some tape here. We're going to use some glue as well, but it's really not that difficult to put the tape. I'm going to just add some along both of the pieces, because when they lay flat, they're both going to lay up against that spine. And we'll use some glue as well. So now this is what it's looking like when we lay this flat. Here is our spine, or our hinge. And I'm going to take the tape off, or the cover off of the tape. And just get the cover. We have that on there. And now let's get our glue. And we're gonna set this in the middle. This does not run the entire length of the spine. I like to keep it just a little bit shorter, but I'm gonna put it in the middle of the spine, both in the horizontal and vertical direction. It should fit nice right there in the middle. And we just press that down. We have the hinge piece upward here. Mine's got a little bit of glue still drying, but just press that down. You can use your bone folder to really get those edges down. And that's what we're looking like so far. So now I have a piece of black cardstock that is 6 3/4 by 6, and we're just going to fold this in half. I'm not doing any measuring, just folding it in half and using my bone folder. It is approximately 3 3/8 in dimension there. And so it looks something like this with a fold. I have 2 pieces of decorative paper that are 3 1/4 by 5 7/8, and that's gonna fit on either side of our pocket. And I'm gonna go ahead and I want to tape those down to this. This is before I've attached it because we're gonna do some punching, and I wanna punch it this way with the pieces already on here. So let's just take this tape off, and I'm gonna glue that onto our folded pocket. So this is the folded piece that is going to go on here as our pocket. I've got it placed with the decorative paper first, and we're going to punch out. I want to do a little notch here. And so I just have this little notch here. I've used my double-sided tear tape and applied it to 2 sides on one of the sides and then just one on the other, because if you can imagine, we're going to need to cover this on either side of the hinge and along the bottom, and so only one side of the bottom would have to be covered. So let's go ahead and take that off, and I'm probably also going to put a strip of my glue on this as well. We want to make sure our pocket stays in place. So I'll put this glue just right on top of the adhesive just in case. And now as we get ready to line it up on the hinge, I can go ahead and I will place this one side down all the way flush with that hinge and fold this over as well and just press. And eventually, I don't necessarily want this hinge to be standing the pocket straight up. I'll want it to bend over. So we can go ahead and bend in both directions if we want to, and just kind of get that hinge working so that it is a foldable piece and glued in place. And there we have this pocket. Now we need something to fill it with. I want to make a bookmark to go into our pocket here. And so I start with a base of my cardstock that is 2 by 5 inches. And that's so that it can fit right in the middle here with our notch cut out. And remember, we have it, even though it's 6 inches long, we have some tape down here. But on top of that, I also want to place a circle, and what I have is a 2.5 inch circle that's going to be covered with some paper, and I want that to kind of stick out over the top of our book. I've done it different ways. In the original book that I used, I just had a tag with the little ribbon coming out, and that's cute as well, but I thought, let's try something different. So I'm going to put white on the back of the bookmark so it can be used as a journaling card, and I have a piece, and each of these are cut just a little bit smaller than the 2 by 6, And then because I have the 2.5 inch circle punch, that's what I'm using. And I'm gonna put some of the same paper on top, and let's see what that looks like. So I'm gonna glue all these together and let me show you. So I've just lined this up, covered the bookmark, I didn't have a circle punch that was slightly smaller than the 2.5. I probably need to get a 2 inch. But since I didn't, I'm just going to use the same size of decorative paper. And I just kind of want to have this as a piece that we will place in our pocket. It fits right in here. And get through those little pieces there. It fits. Remember, I said it's not going to go all the way down, but I want this piece to hang over so that when we end up closing everything, that is going to be coming out of the top. We're going to probably have some other little charms or decorative pieces along with a cover here. But I'm already trying to think of ahead of having some kind of layering pieces popping out over the top. So that's what we're going to use right there. Next, we're going to work on a pocket that's going to go on this left-hand side opposite here of our cover. I have started with a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 inches. And on this left-hand side, I've scored a 1/2 inch, and I've also scored a 1/2 inch along the bottom. Now we're going to handle these fold lines because they're going to be what's attached to the cover, but I want to also make this at an angle. So I have a pencil, and very lightly, I'm going to come in here on this score line. Now I could go ahead and fold it if I wanted to, but I think I'm going to use it just right there. I want to mark 1 inch from that score line, just a little mark. And then over here on the right hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. I want 1 inch from the score line that I'm marking. It doesn't have to be exact. I've got 2 little lines there, but I know I'm going to use the one that's up larger. Now what I want to do is I am going to trim from little mark to little mark at this angle. Let me grab my trimmer. I have my trimmer here, and now I'm just going to take these marks. I'm going to line up. I know that the center of this section is where the cut will be made. And I'm going to just trim along that line. And that takes that triangle piece off, and we've got something that looks like this. If we have any other little mark that you can see, I'm just going to erase that. I think that looks good. We're going to also cover this, and so let's go ahead and do that. Let's take care of the corner on our pocket. I'm going to trim that off just like I've done if you go all the way back to when we covered our album. And I'm just going to trim this up to that point of intersection, do a slight turn, and trim that piece off. And now let's do some folding. And now we're down to having this pocket that is 3.5 by 4.5 tall. That's what we're going to have. So the piece that I've cut to go here is about 3 3/8 by 4 3/8, but we need to trim off this as well. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. What I think I'm going to do that to me is the easiest, this is about where I'm going to want to put the decorative paper. But I need to trim this off at an angle. So I'm going to move everything over just a little bit, extend it beyond what I would, and also move it up from where I would. So see, now I have a little bit larger border. I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to just trim along, and we could use the trimmer, but I am just going to trim along this edge, straight edge there. And now let's put it in position, and it should be about where we want it. I think that looks pretty good. I may have it a little long for some reason. No, I may trim this off just a little bit. Sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't. I may have fit it a little bit of an angle there, but I think that looks pretty good. It's nice and easy to trim that way. And I'm gonna attach this with some glue before we put it on our book. Line that up, very good. Now I am gonna use my two-sided tape along the pieces here for the pocket. And I'm using the 1/4 inch, and then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of glue. But I like to put the tape along the fold line, usually right there, closest to that fold line. Let's take some of our glue along the edge here. Just really get this to adhere down. Now we've got to fold this up, fold this down, and I want to get right here on the corner. I'm going to go ahead and fold both of these to kind of form that 90 degrees. And I'm going to place it so that I'm on the edge of the paper and keep that border kind of even there. We can use our bone folder to really get that down and adhere. And we've got our pocket all ready to place some things inside. So now I've taken a piece of cardstock that is 5 by 2 3/4, and we're going to use this as our pocket. So I want to go ahead and trim off these corners as we've done before at an angle to the point of intersection, and then off at the corner. And if we go ahead and we'll fold this up, and we can go ahead and get our paper cut to go on the cover here as well. Now I'm going to take a piece of decorative paper that is 3 7/8 by 2 1/8, and we'll place that right here on our pocket. Oops, got a little bit of tape showing through. Then we'll need to put some tape along our pocket edges here, and then we'll apply some glue and be ready to place this down on our album. Now we'll take our pocket. I've got all my glue adhesive on here. Fold these up, and now we'll be ready to place this on this lower portion of the flap. It should fit nicely there. Get all the glue off my fingers and everything. Get that off. And I'm going to take my bone folder, and let's just really burnish this down. Got this piece of adhesive right here. I'll get it and just really fold that in. And there we've got our pocket that's going to be perfect to add a little cute item inside there. I took a piece of black cardstock that is about 4 1/8 by 1 1/8, and on top of that I've taken a 4 by 1 piece of decorative paper and put it on top, and we're going to use this right here as a little tuck spot holder. Now when we do this, I'm only going to apply some adhesive across the top, and just at the very top is where we want this to be. I'm also going to put a little bit of glue, so we will have this as a strong little tuck spot hold. Only across the top though. We'll leave the remainder open at the bottom there, where whatever we use can just tuck up underneath there. So I'm going to take that here. This is on essentially our back cover. Line this up right about in the middle. Place it down, and then we'll just press that down there. hold that in place. And now we have a nice little tuck spot. So for the most part, we have all of our pockets done. We've got a couple of things I may add into the pockets and everything, but now it's time to work on the front and back cover and our spine. I have chosen from this same paper pad, this poinsettia picture. I love this. The only thing about this paper pad, there are no cut apart cards or anything. That's why though I'm going with a really bold print that I'm going to use here on the front and the spine and everything. Let me get the sizes for you. In the meantime, also I am going to use the ribbon closure, and I'm going to go with the silver ribbon here that I have, this really thin ribbon. Instead of doing a total tie around here, I think I'm just going to do the ribbon across the front and across the back. We're going to need to place that first. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take my 1/2 inch two-sided tape. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to take this piece and open it up across the back so we've got our full piece here. We can kind of keep this all even, as I'm not going to go all the way to the very edge, but almost to the spine there, and trim that off. And then I'm going to do the same thing from the back and try to just keep this, I'm going to try to keep this lined up as best I can, so these two pieces of ribbon will come together. So we've got our tape placed. Now I've taken two pieces of about 13 to 14 inches of ribbon, and let's just start with one of the sides. We'll take our cover off of that adhesive, take one of those strips, and we're just going to lay that on there. We're going to have paper laid across it, so that's going to add more of a hold for that as well. Now let's do the back side. And place our ribbon down. And that's ready to go there. Now we need to get our papers ready. Now I have these pieces that are 4 3/8 by 6 3/8, two of those for the front and the back cover, and then one that is 6 3/8 tall and about 7/8 inch wide for that 1 inch spine. And I've applied my tape to the back. I am going ahead and using the two-sided tape. So let me get these covers off and we will get ready to place these on our book. As we place this, we want to make sure that our ribbon is flat, it is straight and in position. And I'm just going to center this and place it down. A lot of times I will do the back cover first because I will work out any kinks that I have in placement. But I just went with this one on this time. I think this paper is so pretty, and even though we don't have a cut apart to put anything on the front, I think it's okay because it's so pretty. I like to have my pretty papers be visible. Now, if I come across, as I'm working on some of my different projects this Christmas, and if I do find a piece that I think will go well, I may add it. And if I do, I will come back and let you know, and I will share it with you. I'm going to place this spine piece. I do have some flowers though, some other poinsettias that we can look to see about adding those, because I think they are very pretty. And then we'll just have a few things. I'll show you some things that I may add inside my book. Now this paper is not directional. It really doesn't matter which way I do it. I love these beautiful flowers and the colors. And just adding some more glue. And we'll place this down. I still, as you can see, coming off the top, I have my bookmark piece still in its little pocket and ready there. All right, it looks like for that part we are complete. I'm gonna close this up. I've got a couple of more things I want to add. So here are some of the little paper poinsettias that I have made with some little dies that I have, and I'll put the links to all that in the description below. And I also have a jar full of beads and little bells, and I thought I would find two little silver bells. Here's one. And I'm gonna put those on the string here that is tying the album together. I may have to pour some of these out to get to those. Let's see, are these are the same size, so the little jingle bells that I have. I love having a little jar full of those kind of things. Handy for the holiday season. It has a little place here that we can loop. So I had to be careful to use the smaller ribbon, and it still may be a little bit of a handle for me. I may have to come in and use some tape, but I think I can squinch it maybe and get it started, and maybe I can take my tweezers. All right, I just used my scissors to kind of push this through. And then I'm gonna turn this bell around. It will be right here is one. Oh, I thought I turned it around. Let me get this turned on the ribbon. There we go. So it will be right here. And then for the second piece, let's see if I can place that and do the same thing. I just took my scissors. They have the sharp point. I'm just going to push that through a little bit, enough that I can then grab it from the other end and pull through. May not be the proper way to do it, but it's how I got it done. And so then we can take this, tie it, and then we come together with our little bells right here. My chipboard is wanting to open up, but this is going to help it as it stays tied together. Now to look at our little flowers. I think I want to place my flowers something like this in this lower right hand corner. So I'm just going to add some glue to the back of each one of them, and we'll let them have some time to dry. But I'm going to kind of have that there. Let's go with this smaller one. And we will apply that. And kind of have this last one here on the top. We might could have used some foam dots or something, but I want this glue to really help it stay. There we go. And again, if I come up with something else that I want to add on front, but I think this paper is so pretty. I love the little bells here. We've got the string. And now I'm going to show you what you can add to the inside. So we've got our album complete. The front cover, the back cover, everything is decorated. We have this little tie closure with our bells. And as everything opens up, we have this little pocket in the front. For now, I'm just going to place a little 4x5 piece of paper card. You can use this as a journaling card. It would be great to put a picture on the back or do some journaling. It can tuck in right here in our side pocket, and that fits nicely, and it's pretty matching paper that goes. Don't forget, we have our little bookmark that we made here. We added the little white on the back. That's perfect for journaling, or if you have some pretty little pictures that you wanted to put in, but it pops open over the top of our book, that coordinating paper with the pinks. We have that. That opens up. You know, you can always, if you want to cover this paper, you could put some pretty pictures on it. I love the the beautiful papers. Here we have this part of the flat. We don't have anything on it except for this. You could add paper, pictures, whatever. It opens up and we have a little pocket here, and I've just made a little 3.5 by 3.5 card. If you wanted to put a piece of white paper, you could here, but that would work as a card or a picture of some sort. And then I have another little card. Let's see, this one is about 2 1/4 by almost 4. It's just a little card here, same type of thing. We can tuck that in as well in our pocket. And then another 4 by 5 journaling card that you can use that will tuck in right here. And look, it holds that in place just by putting that tape across the top. It's a cute little place to put pictures, to put the journaling pieces, whatever it is that you would like. And then it folds all together nicely. We can put our little bow here to close everything up with our jingle bells ringing. And it's just a nice place to have pictures to have be displayed, to keep your memories, anything else like that. So I hope you've enjoyed this project. It is really fun. It's a sturdy piece that has the chipboard with it. It may take you just a little bit of time, but I love to do these. Sometimes I stretch them out over a few days and work on different parts of it. Not that it's necessary to do that, but sometimes I like to do that. This is a great little project that you can have running along. Use any kind of paper you want and just put these cute little things on the inside. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Be back with me again soon and we'll be doing some more Christmas projects.